It may surprise you to learn that fewer than 1% of small businesses across America use traditional media, such as press releases, as a regular marketing and public relations strategy. This is despite the fact that larger corporations still use the medium to draw up attention, publicity, visibility, and notoriety to shape their public perception and build authority. Meanwhile, by comparison, approximately 92% of entrepreneurs, businesses, and small and medium-sized enterprises are using social media to increase visibility and brand awareness, according to the entrepreneur. However, in a crowded media landscape where everyone has access to Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and their own personal website, as well as their own online reviews, the real question becomes, what actually makes your business memorable? On this episode, I had the distinct pleasure of answering that question with my friend Mickie Kennedy. He's the founder and CEO of eReleases. It's a leading press releases distribution service, helping small businesses, startups, and authors gain national media coverage and notoriety. Kennedy comes to the table with more than 25 years of experience in public relations and media outreach. He's dedicated his career to helping small businesses bridge the gap between their businesses and the journalists and reporters, which can help to elevate their creativity, credibility, and brand awareness. In a world where trust drives buying decisions, Mickie is passionate about showing small business owners and entrepreneurs that earned media still matters and why being featured in trusted and traditional publications can be the differentiating factor which separates you from your nearest competitor who only relies on social media to increase visibility. He shares practical insights on how small business owners and entrepreneurs can use press releases strategically, what journalists are actually looking for, and how authentic storytelling can create authentic and long-term authority online. And Kennedy joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So, Mickie, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to be with you this Friday to talk about e-releases and how you help small businesses take advantage of traditional media. It's great to see you, and happy Friday to you, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. And Mickie, I wanted to start our conversation by asking you why you think traditional media is still a great vertical for small businesses to get notoriety and exposure, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
So I think that PR is really effective at getting credibility. Everybody has blinders on when it comes to advertising, but when an Wired magazine writes an article about you on their website, or someone in your industry writes in a trade publication or a blog or a website an article about you, it conveys so much credibility. And that authority and credibility can't be replicated through any kind of paid medium or mechanism. And so, it elevates you as sort of a thought leader in your industry. It also makes it easier to convert. So your leads will convert better when you expose them to these articles that you've been published in, or if they've seen these articles. And also, it reduces churn. There's always your existing customer base that each year has to evaluate, are we working with the right vendors? And if they see killing it, getting articles written about you in your industry, they would feel like, why would we move at this point? It seems like they're really, know what they're doing, and the media is recognizing them. And so that's the real advantage of PR. It really is one of those things that, gives you so much authority and elevates you and gets you recognized. And for that reason, you can't do the same thing with paid advertising, and it is also a very inexact science, and that's why I think a lot of marketers don't love it. It's harder to track, your visitors. Did they come from an article that they read, or things like that? But despite that, the companies that grow the fastest, a lot of startups, a lot of funded startups generally lay down a base of PR, and that is going to make their job easier when they do start paid advertising, because they're going to convert at a cheaper conversion rate, and they're going to maintain people longer because of that base of credibility and authority that they have.
Absolutely, and it's also a great vehicle for public speakers to get noticed, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, nothing will elevate you like a thought leader more than having a quote in an article. And all of a sudden, you reach out to places to speak, and they're going to do their due diligence and look you up online, and they're going to see you quoted in articles. It's going to make it a lot easier to get those speaking gigs, and those being invited to do talks from the stage and things along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're the founder of a company called eReleases, which is a prominent press release distribution service that assists, as I said, small businesses or startups and others in gaining a national media exposure. And I know you've got more than 25 years in the industry. So I know that you founded the company to bridge the gap between, business and journalists, my friend. So tell me about the company and what makes it so fabulous, my friend.
Sure. So, I started it because at the time I did not see other people in the industry serving small businesses and giving them access to journalists, and particularly the wire. In the U.S., press releases can travel over a wire. It's PR Newswire and Business Wire. It's basically a duopoly in the United States. That reason, being a duopoly is expensive, but it is one of those places that if you have newsworthy content and you want to attract the likes of the Associated Press, Reuters, those different types of wires. Those wires don't run press releases. The Associated Press and Reuters and places like that, they run articles that they've written. And for that reason, it's really important to get the most exposure that you can. And so, PR Newswire has relationships with almost all media, all trade publications, all local media, newspapers, TV, radio. It's the place that people go to. I follow somebody on TikTok called Snackalator, and each week he does a roundup of grocery store snacks hitting store shelves as well as fast food new offerings at fast food places. He gets all of his content from The Wire as well. So he has journalist access to The Wire. And why that's so valuable for a journalist is they log in and they see the industry feeds that they subscribe to. They can also set up keywords to exclude and include. So it's a very pure feed of content that should be very relevant to their industry. And if you are have any experience in the PR world over the last 10 years, email has basically slowed down journalists, and journalists are talking about how their inboxes are useless because they get so much spam from media databases. Over the last 20 years, databases have become very commonplace where for a fee of anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, you get access to a journalist database. In theory, it sounds great, but what happens is a golf club company sends to the 1,400 journalists that cover golf clubs and nothing happens. So then they think, well, bankers like to play golf, business people, Wall Street people like to play golf. So let's send this to financial analysts and reporters who only cover banking trends. And all of a sudden, off-targeted press releases is happening in every industry, in every inbox. And so the wire is more important today than ever. And you know the leverage effect of being on the wire is if you have a message that really resonates, you can get dozens, if not hundreds, of media pickups. We did a initiative during the pandemic. One press release to help the Dining Bond Initiative, which was basically set up like the War Bond Initiative to help restaurants that were closed during the pandemic. And it generated in excess of $10 million in revenue for local restaurants across the country. Basically, you know, if you wanted to nominate a local favorite restaurant, you wanted to give them a donation, the volunteers would try to reach out to them. And if they contacted them, the money was given directly to a restaurant. And I think the reason that it got so much pickup is largely because it was positive news at a time where there was a lot of uncertainty. We were sent home 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we saw what that ended up being. But it also empowered people who felt powerless. And I think that it was such a positive message at a time where we needed it. And so that's the power of leverage by clicking a button. And, you know, we did it at no cost, but if someone had come in, it would be $400 to issue that release. And then the ROI of $10 million and over 100 articles is just phenomenal. And it was picked up by lots of small local papers, but it was also picked up by the big guys like the Wall Street Journal and Barron's and lots of food magazines. So, you know, that's the real value of that. And I had mentioned that PR Newswire and Business Wire are very expensive. I think right now PR Newswire is charging almost $1,800 to move a 600-word press release nationally. Through us at eReleases, you get a national distribution on PR Newswire, including the industry targeting for, like I said, about $400. So it's a huge savings coming through us. The caveat is we serve small businesses and entrepreneurs and startups. The type of customers that PR Newswire's salespeople are not interested in. They're looking for the companies that are doing 30, 40 releases a year and are gladly willing to spend $30 or $40,000 on Newswire fees. So, you know, that's why they give us such a really great rate and we're able to pass that along. However, if you're a big cat publicly traded company, we're going to introduce you to our contact at PR Newswire and have you work directly with them. But it's a really exciting value that we're able to give people, and because it's such a strong value. My thing is to really educate people to do meaningful press releases. You know, you hired a new HR director, probably not important enough to send over the wire, but you know, the types of things that you should be considering are, you know, things with story arcs. The most popular press release we get is a product or service launch. And journalists like to write in a story arc. and it's kind of hard to build a story with just features. So one of the easiest ways to take a product launch or a service launch is to showcase a customer. And I know that sounds strange because you want the focus to be on your product, but nothing demonstrates your product or service better than having a customer and their struggles and how you solved it. And so you could take a company that is 3 years old and has never been profitable. You could cite a publicly available data point, like what the failure rate for new companies in your industry are in the first 5 years. It's usually more than half, sometimes two-thirds. And then you could talk about this company looking like it was going to be yet another liability and going to suffer the same fate. But hey, they used your invoice writing software for logistics. And at the end of a 6 month trial, they're projected to have their first profit at the end of the year. Then you could have an amazing quote by them saying, "We always thought that if we just won more bids, we would become profitable." And what this software solved for us is that we'll never be profitable if we're not writing invoices that take into account our expenses and locks in our profit at the moment of sending out invoices. And so you want something that's really going to showcase your value and that you solve something. And it's counterintuitive, but those story arcs are what the media's looking for. They're at the end of the day, their audience wants to be entertained or educated, and nothing educates or entertains more than a story. And that's why, since we're children, we know what a good story is. We also know what a good joke is, because a good joke follows a story arc. It's one of the most primal things, but when it comes to press releases, so many people forget about the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mickey, I was so curious to ask you about your personal why in starting the company because I know that you have a passion for making a traditional media more accessible and more effective in terms of the reach for small businesses to really get the brand and notoriety out there. So tell me about your why, buddy, and why it's important to you personally to make traditional media more accessible and effective, my friend.
Sure. So I grew up with a grandfather who was a serial entrepreneur, and he would start something and lose interest and move on. And I always felt like, wow, why don't you just hold on to something? I mean, he let millions of dollars slip through his hands. He was never poor, but he always lost interest and just sort of moved from company to company that he would start up. And I saw the struggles, and I worked at a telecom research company when I was first exposed to press releases, and I really wanted to get it to work for them, and I did. And I just saw, in that case, we would issue a press release and get picked up by The Economist and Financial Times and the Washington Post. And at the time, we were like a 4 or 5 person company. And I was like, this is amazing. And so I felt a real passion for wanting to do that for other people and, people who wanted to grow a business and to stick with it and to help them remain excited about their company. And so, that was my real drive and passion. I recognize I would probably have made a lot more money if I had started a PR firm and charged a lot more, but that's not where my goals and things that excite me are. I like working with companies who are just in early stages and looking for inventive and creative ways to get out there and to get noticed and are doing something unique and different. And some of our customers are people who have full-time jobs, but they're doing a side hustle that they hope will build into something. Some are starting up their own business, or they've been funded. All different types that are out there. And we also work with some small businesses that are a bit bigger, and they have several employees, and they're looking to build out into PR. And so I just love working with all of those types and helping them and getting them to see the bigger picture, because a single press release is probably not going to make a difference. And so many people move from shiny object to shiny object, and I think AI is the big shiny object right now. And I think that people play around. do one press release and then say PR didn't work for me. And I always tell people that if you're going to do PR, you need to do a PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases. Being a small business, you may not be able to do 6 to 8 releases in a year. So maybe you do it quarterly and it takes a year and a half to 2 years to do a campaign of 6 to 8 press releases. And then you want to make them meaningful. I had mentioned stay away from, the employee announcements and, unless you hire a new CEO or a big industry veteran that everyone is going to recognize in the industry that, wow, this is a coup. This guy's coming on board to be the sales director. He's a big deal. Those would be the exceptions. But, other things that you can do and leverage that are important is, if everybody's saying the same thing in your industry, is there a contrarian viewpoint that you have? And are you willing to put it out there? And it's not going to jeopardize your relationship with customers. So many times a journalist goes to print with only showing one side of a story. And journalists like to be fair and balanced, maybe outside of politics, but they do. They like to have reasonable arguments for both sides. And the reason a lot of these articles go to print that just talk about the positive is no one has raised their hand and said, "Hey, I want to talk about the cons, the negative side of this." And so, everybody might be pro electric cars in the automotive industry, and maybe you're raising your hand and saying, "Not so fast." When electric cars catch on fire, it takes 6 to 8 fire trucks to put it out. Maybe we should hold off until we've solved that. There's the environmental issues of what are we going to do with all these batteries at the end of their life? Are we creating a different type of environmental problem? Maybe we should hold off until we've solved that. Just putting some sort of things out there to get people to think deeper rather than embracing so quickly, where we're headed is a way to really get yourself out there and get quoted. And so what happens is if you agree with the industry, you might occasionally get a quote or a mention in an article. It's rare, but it's possible. If you are a contrarian and there's not a lot in your industry, you stand the likelihood that every time an article is published on that subject, that you're the person quoted giving the contrarian viewpoint. And that's powerful. And that gives you the likelihood of getting dozens of articles over time rather than just one in 1,000 possibility of getting it mentioned. And so it's really being creative and thoughtful and looking deeper. What is it that you do? What's your unique selling proposition? How are you differentiated in the marketplace? Do you have an interesting story? A lot of people that appear on Shark Tank use us to announce their episode before it airs. The producers recommend it. And one of the things that I think that they get so well as a startup is they have an elevator pitch and they're able to convey in 1 or 2 sentences what distinguishes them from everybody else in the industry and why they are novel and unique. And you need to be able to do that for your business. And if you come to me and say you're just a commodity, how can you make yourself not a commodity? I had one person who said, I don't think there's anything we can do. But then when we peeled back the layers, we realized, oh, we have like 30,000 videos for every little thing you can do in the CRM. So rather than call us or hire someone every month to spend a few hours taking our Salesforce the Salesforce software and figuring out how to get it to do new things, we have the education. And I'm like, yeah, being a Salesforce implementer may be a commodity, but you have a moat. You have this video library that could potentially save a client tens of thousands of dollars. That's what makes you unique. No one can easily replicate that in a very short period of time. So that is something that will make it a lot easier for you to convert people. And so I think for that reason, you really need to put your creative head on and think, are there things out there already that make you unique and you're just not aware of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mickie, I'm curious to get your perspective on this because Gallagher, which is a global insurance brokerage firm, they released a study having to do with what they're calling publicity insurance for small businesses. They say that 82% of small businesses look at a local or national media coverage as publicity insurance. And I'm wondering if you think publicity insurance is a good business strategy for small businesses. What do you think of those findings, my friend?
So I am not familiar with publicity insurance. I haven't heard about it. I do know that there are times where bad news happens, and you got to get out in front of it very quickly. And a lot of times, people will hire PR experts and just write blank checks to them. And again, I recognize, wanting to have a professional to hold your hand through things like that. But I also think for a lot of small businesses, it's using common sense. Look online. There's a lot of people who have advice in this arena. I think that one of the first things that you should do in a media emergency or controversy, or maybe you're involved in a recall or something, is A, talk to your lawyer. What can I say? What can't I say? And then secondly, address it. And even if your lawyer says say very little, just say, hey, we acknowledge that there's this issue. We are doing everything we can to address it. We are working internally and hope to be able to communicate with whether it's our vendors or customers or people after the fact. I think people like to be, silence it speaks volumes, and I think that when things are out there, you want to get in front of it, but you want to be thoughtful. And if you make a mistake, I think one of the best things to do is to acknowledge it and to note that you've addressed it. If a major executive says something horrific or insensitive or terrible online, you have to immediately address it. And you see it out there a lot of times where they say, hey, this person has been suspended and we are investigating the matter. And we want you to know that the words that were expressed do not represent the company. And, that tells people, wow, that they're immediately responsive. And so I think that, the last thing you want to do is just, uh, delete all your comments or restrict comments on new stuff and hide. Those that sends a different type of message. And so I don't know the specifics of publicity insurance, but it might be if it's cost effective for the right person. And it really is also, when it's triggered, how quickly can you access, either the assistance to find someone to help you, or to be reimbursed? Is there a limit, or how does that work exactly? But it's not a terrible idea. I think that running a small business, especially if you're in manufacturing or in an arena where there is potential for recalls and things like that, that having something in place to move if there is ever a problem quickly is important. And, having done a couple of press releases and knowing how it works so that you can quickly draft one and get out is probably good insurance as well. And again, always run through your attorney with what you're sending out, because you don't want to say anything that could get you in trouble. But I do think it's important that you do move quickly, and if you can, accept responsibility and just be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, and Mickey, I'm also curious to ask you about the 3% rule when it comes to press releases, because I know that you say that most press releases fail because they don't follow this rule. And I'm wondering, what are the essential knowledge points that small businesses should know about the 3% rule as it relates to media coverage or press releases, my friend?
Sure. So the truth is, only about 3% of press releases that go out over the wire generate earned media. So it's like, if you go and look at the press releases on PR Newswire and Business Wire, a lot of people will say, I could do a press release like that for my company. And you're probably looking at one of the 97% of press releases that isn't going to generate earned media. So why bother trying to follow that press release? So I tell people to look for strategic ideas. What is your story? Do you have a fun startup story? Do you have, something that is unique about you and vulnerable? Did you start your business after your father died and you used to have this hobby and now you've decided, you want to develop it into a business? Any of these stories that you see on Shark Tank when people introduce themselves are the types of things that the media loves. And there's a reason that everybody that appears on Shark Tank doesn't start with their numbers, they start with their vulnerability. And they're like, I was laid off and I decided that me and my best friend were going to start this company, and or I've always had a passion for this, and then it just seemed to make sense to go ahead and start this company. And they have their why, and that's important. And so, is that a potential story for you? Is there, your is there a way to inject story arcs into what you want to announce? I mentioned the product or service launch. Are there blind spots in your industry? And those are the types of things that I can't wait to go to this year's big conference and talk to others, because I've noticed this and I want to see if other people have noticed this. The reason you're curious is because no one's talking about it. The trade publications aren't talking about it. Journalists in your industry aren't talking about it. But maybe you have noticed this first, and other people have noticed it, but they haven't tied the dots and connected it. And you could break that story. And I've had that be very effective with people. I had a carpet company in New Jersey. I can't think of a more non-newsworthy company from a press release standpoint. They are basically a commodity business. They've been around for a while, which helps. But what could we do with them? And they talked about how bad the big box home improvement stores are to the carpet industry. Home Depot and Lowe's of the world. They often use installers who are not carpet installers. They call people who are licensed, have a home improvement license in their state. So if you call a roofer who doesn't have work this week and say, hey, could you install 2,400 square feet? They might tell the person at Home Depot or Lowe's, yes, I can do that. And then they're on YouTube trying to figure out how to install carpet. And it may look good that next day, but then all of a sudden you get buckles and it needs to be restretched and all the furniture has to come out. And Home Depot and Lowe's aren't going to do that for free. You're going to have to start from scratch, and it's a terrible situation. And so we did a press release about that and had a quote from this owner of this carpet company, and he got picked up in all the floor trade publications, over a dozen, and got eventually picked up in his local newspaper and New Jersey Magazine. And he put all of that together and gave it to his salespeople. And every time they go give a quote, they would say, hey, we may not come in the cheapest, but we've been around for 20 years. We rarely ever have to come back to a home, have you move all your furniture and restretch the carpet, because we do it right the first time. And if here we are in Floor Trade Weekly, here we are in Flooring Today, here we are in the local paper, here we are in New Jersey Magazine, and people just look through it briefly, under 2 minutes. And he says, just adding that to their sales process converted 17% more. So almost one out of every five sales that they were previously losing, they're now converting. And that's the power of PR. Just seeing that authority that you have in your industry. They're like, oh, we could save $400, but I'd rather go with the company that's recognized nationally and in the paper and in New Jersey Magazine, because, obviously they are authorities, and maybe I think they're worth the extra two, three, $400. And so those are very valuable things. Those blind spots. I talked about the value of a quote and being a contrarian. Having an amazing quote makes you stand out. So if a journalist is ever looking at two stories and they're about the same newsworthiness, not very strong, but one has an amazing quote, and by amazing quote, you said something beautifully, or you said something with a lot of active verbs, and you made it very succinct and powerful. And so they know that if they write an article and they put your quote in it, and then they write another article and put the other person's quote in it, yours is going to be a lot better because you have an amazing quote, and it just stings. It smacks. If they were to take that quote out and paraphrase it, there'd be a loss for what was previously written because it was so perfect before. That is another thing that you can really focus on. And a lot of people, write quotes by committee, and they're not very strong. And so, and that's a place where AI is not very good. And, I feel like some of the best quotes are written by humans, and I feel like some of the best headlines are written by humans. And I don't say you can't lean on AI to help write a press release, but never let AI choose what the press release will be about. Because again, AI is going to look at all the press releases out there and it's going to choose the types of releases everyone's doing that are likely among the 97% that do not matter and do not get media pickup. So always approach AI saying, this is exactly what I want you to write about the topic. And I like it going bit by bit. So let's start with three opening paragraphs for me to choose from. Now let's go to the next paragraph and leave me room for a quote. And then say, give me five quotes that you like. And then I would take that quote and I'd beat it up and put it in my own language. I would make sure every word is an active word. I would make that quote sing because that is your Trojan horse to getting picked up because people don't realize having an amazing quote makes it so easy for a journalist to choose you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mickey, I'm curious to get your thoughts on these findings from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that reported that small businesses in America that engage in formal PR relations or PR typically spend between $3,000 and $10,000 a month on agency or consultant services, my friend. Well, small businesses tend to allocate between 5 and 10% of their total revenue to marketing, specifically specialized in PR initiatives, which often cost them between $10,000 and $50,000 annually. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on whether you think this is a good business strategy and how small businesses can rethink it if you don't agree with those tactics. My friend, what are your thoughts then?
So I think that hiring a PR firm that has a great reputation, specifically in your industry, is great. They earn the money. They leverage relationships they have. They beat on doors. They are effective. However, I find that a lot of people hire PR firms that are local. They like local, and they're generalist. And I tell you, it never works. It's hard for a generalist to have a lot of relationships. They might know a business person that writes the business newspaper. They might know someone at the local paper. But outside of that, and the truth is, you could probably do that research yourself, they're not very effective. So if you're looking for a small PR firm or a PR firm that serves small businesses and entrepreneurs, you want to make sure they're industry specific. And so if you find one and they're taking clients and they have a good track record, I feel it can be a really effective use of money. But I also caution people that for every good person that's out there, there's like 10 others that are generalist. And I think that you'd be better and more effective doing it yourself. And, using on AI to help write, as I'd mentioned, looking at the types of strategies that I'd mentioned before. And for anybody wondering about the strategies, I do have a whole masterclass dedicated to these, and it's completely free. It's at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN. And it's less than an hour long video, and you'll go through it and walk away with like probably a brainstorm of 10 strategic types of press releases you could do for your company and for you to announce. And so if you were to do that and then do those press releases maybe every other month or quarterly, you would spend probably less than $3,000 a year using a service like mine, and you'd probably be a lot more effective. Probably, as effective as a good $30,000-$40,000 a year specialized PR firm. So it really comes down to what you can afford, and can you find a good one? I unfortunately, I've had a few people come up to me. We work with a lot of small PR firms at eReleases, and they'll say, "Hey, do you know anybody, a PR firm that works with small businesses in this industry?" And I'll contact all the people that I know that serve that industry, and they're not taking clients right now. So my first thing is in a boom economy or things going well, if you can find a PR firm that's in your industry, might not be a good one. And so that's the challenge with it. And so if you find a good one, I recommend don't let them go. Try to keep them under retainer forever because once their book is full, they often are very slow to add new customers and clients, and then you're probably going to end up with someone who's not as effective. And so I like to say if you're unsure, see if they'll do a small contract, like 3 months, 6 months at the very minimum. Don't lock in for a whole year if you find out that they're not really a good fit, or it turns out you're with more of a generalist and someone who isn't really a rainmaker in your industry. But I say consider doing it yourself. I mean, that's why I started eReleases. I have a passion for small businesses, and I know that DIY is a difficult thing for business owners because you're struggling and doing so much. But it is the type of thing that if you just put on your calendar quarterly or every other month, and you sit down and you brainstorm strategic types of releases, taking my course into action, and then lean on AI a little bit to write it, but really make sure you go in there and make the headline really strategic and make the quote really powerful. Stay away from puns in the headlines. A lot of people feel like a headline for a press release is like a headline in a newspaper. It's not. A journalist is busy and they're looking at the feeds on the wire. They want to the headline matches their industry and is on a subject that they might be interested in. So the New York Post has the best puns headlines, but they won't work in a press release. So make sure you have a very effective headline. The most effective headlines are usually just boring, and that's good. You've got all the meat and content in there, but it isn't really going to excite people. The excitement should be in the quote, and really spend a little time on that. But again, this is something you could probably knock out in less than 15 minutes quarterly, and then just upload it to a service like eReleases, attach a couple of photos. You don't need your logo because logos aren't going to excite journalists. But if you have a couple candid pictures, like maybe a candid picture of someone using your product or service, or something that you've done that you can that fits the press release, having photos helps you because you get to upload two. And again, if a journalist is looking at two articles and they know they're going to be posted online, one has photos, one doesn't, they're going to go with the one that has photos because they know that their audience is more visual and they're wanting to be more stimulated visually, and then that article is going to have more engagement. So your secret sauce is your headline, your quote, and a couple of engaging photos, or at least one really cool engaging photo. And something you take with the iPhone, so much better, and there's better engagement than a professional shot. The professional headshots and the old products shown on blue velvet, well lit, those days are gone because an audience person visiting a website is going to be more engaged seeing your product on a messy desk with a cup of coffee next to a real person than they will on blue velvet, well lit, and looking like it's perfect, right from 1990s. So I think it's a perfect time to get out there and to use PR because I feel like those type of things have made it more democratic. You don't have to hire a professional photographer. You can do it yourself. You don't have to hire a high-priced writer. I think they're worth it, and we offer writing, but at the end of the day, you can lean on AI. And so you can get this together in less than 15 minutes, 30 minutes max, with a little bit of research and brainstorming, and feed that quarterly. And after you've done 6 to 8 releases, what did that result in you? And I guarantee you, if you follow my model, you'll at least receive 3 or 4 articles, sometimes as many as 10 articles. And those are gold. You take those articles, as soon as you get picked up, share them with your customers, share them with your leads. You'll convert more of the leads. You'll reduce churn with customers. You put it on your social media, archive them on your website, download them, because newspapers articles sometimes go away. It happens every few years that newspapers change CMS, content management systems, and they purge all the old articles and they start fresh. So make sure you get all the snapshots, downloads, and record that and put it on your website. If you don't have a newsroom, if you have a blog, create a different category called newsroom or press releases and put your press releases up, put your articles up. Those are the ways in which search engines will find you. AI gets trained on press releases. Right now, people are ranking in AI with ChatGPT and Claude for being the best in their industry because they said they were the best in their industry in a press release. So currently, Claude and ChatGPT are saying, hey, the press releases on Pure Newswire have news authority. So therefore, if the press release you issued says you're the best, we're going to take your word for it. I think they'll close that loophole soon. But in the meantime, it does show that Claude and Gemini, as well as ChatGPT, are paying attention to news, and I think that they will eventually train it to say, hey, maybe not paid press release services, but actual articles out there. So that's even more important to get out there and get your messaging.
Yeah, and Mickey, I've got two questions left for you. And one that I wanted to make sure that I asked you is a two-part question about trust in traditional media and how Americans can still trust additional media in the age of the sort of the digital revolution. And how do you think networking sites like LinkedIn can also be a net positive for small businesses? So you can take that two-part question in any direction you like, my friend.
Sure. So I think that traditional media is always going to matter. I think that right now we're with politically a lot of big media is under attack, but your trade publications aren't. The people who cover your industry aren't really under attack, and I think that people pay attention. So people in your industry follow the trade websites and what they report on and what blogs in your industry report on. And I still think the business sections of newspapers are trusted. I think there's still a lot of trust out there with traditional media, and I think that it's spreading and opening to include a lot of new media, like a lot of fashion influencers on Instagram are breaking stories and sharing content. There are people I mentioned on TikTok who are doing the same thing, and so I think people are feeling more of who fits my vibe when it comes to their news and how they get it, but they're still getting it. I don't follow the news much anymore, but oh yeah, I follow this guy on TikTok. I follow this guy on Instagram, and they're reporting about subject matters I care about, and so those are influences, and so it is evolving, and I think that a lot of it is this vibe check, and I think when it comes to LinkedIn, that's a great place to put your successes when you get the articles and media pickup. Also, great place to have links to your blogs and have links to your press releases on your blog and to get out there and be a presence. There is a great opportunity for newsletters to be posted on a newsletter section of LinkedIn. So, take advantage of it, and network. There are people out there in your industry who are just waiting to be added and being able to connect with. I find that the people who connect more with their competitors and other people have more thoughtful relationships. One of the things I've done is, I'm a partner with PR Newswire, and a lot of people are like, "How does that work?" And I was like, "Well, we have areas that we don't compete in, and when they get a customer who sends a press release that's not well written and needs to be rewritten, and they're not going to rewrite it for them. They do not offer writing services. They'll recommend us, and so we you help each other, and there are more possibilities in every industry for symbiotic relationships than there is competition. And I think a lot of people worry about that. But, there are people in your industry who specialize in nonprofits, and maybe you don't serve nonprofits. So maybe you work out a relationship when they get an off-targeted lead. that's not a nonprofit, they send them to you, and you do the same. And so these types of things are out there, and I think that being scared of competitors and things like that. I say get out there, meet people. It's also, I found that the people who do the best networking in their industries often acquire a lot of companies from people who retire. And the reason is they know them, they recognize them, they trust them. And, these aren't giant, huge corp companies, but it allows them to bring on a whole new book of business, and that person that they have the relationship knows them, has had a relationship with them over the years. These are the types of things that I think that a lot of people feel when it comes to business, that you're very guarded with competitors. And I think that there's a lot of ways in which you can just say, this is my core customer that I look for, and that person hopefully will do the same. And what you'll often find is there's often not huge overlap, and there's potentially opportunities for you to cross pollinate each other. Or, I've seen people who end up rolling up businesses among people they've networked with, because this person serves more of the corporate customer, I serve more of the small business, and we recognize that if we joined forces and became one entity, we'd be a lot more attractive and sell at a much higher multiple than just being a smaller, each two small businesses. And so those are also things that can happen as a result of that. So I feel like with LinkedIn and networking, and also when it comes to the media, there's a lot of cynicism, but at the end of the day, people are out there getting content, and they're consuming content today like they've never first consumed it. And I'm happy and pleased that PR Newswire is so accepting of influencers from social media and other places as journalists. When I started working with them, I think 17, 18 years ago, I had to fight to get bloggers access to PR Newswire's login as a journalist. And, they didn't feel like they were real media. And I'm like, in the case of one that I knew in the telecom world, I pointed out that they had more traffic than the leading telecom trade magazine. And they're like, how do you know that? And I said, well, the trade magazine says they have 14,000 subscribers. This guy has 56,000 visitors a month. And they go, how do you know that? At the time we used Alexa, I think. It was
Mhm.
a website with, so they went there and looked at it, and then they came back and said, you're right. We've had our head in the sand, and we may not like it, that it doesn't look like old media, but media is evolving. And so they did eventually start accepting bloggers, and they've just been very accepting since that, recognizing that the landscape of where people get content is changing. But the one value of having a duopoly with Wire is it makes it so much easier for people to fish in just two oceans. And so you really want to make sure that you're playing in one of them if you're issuing newsworthy content and press releases.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mickey, my final question for you has to do with your own individual, personal, and professional legacy, my friend, and how you want that to be defined.
So I just want to make a difference with as many small businesses and entrepreneurs as possible. We have people who graduate from us, in which I send them directly to PR Newswire, because they're no longer a very small business. They've got funding, they've got hundreds of employees, they're big, and so they've outgrown what we offer, and they're looking for more services. I think that's a win-win for me and PR Newswire, our partnership, but also it's a win for the customer. It's like we helped them during this journey, and they saw the value with PR, and it allowed them to scale and grow, as well as the paid marketing and everything else they do. Because all of this doesn't happen in a vacuum. It works synergistically. And so if you're doing paid advertising, having occasional media hits and articles is going to make it easier to convert, and vice versa. It really does serve to round out the company and help make it easier for you to attract people and keep them.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, my friend, tell me if people want to get connected with eReleases or yourself personally, what's the best way they can do that?
So our website's eReleases.com. That free strategy class that I had mentioned, it's less than an hour long video, and accompanying materials is at eReleases.com. mike.com/plan. All of our social media is on the lower right of our website, including my direct LinkedIn. That's a great way to reach out to me. But feel free to hit the chat button on our website during business hours, or give us a phone call, or send us an email. We don't have any salespeople. There's no commissions or quotas. We're all driven to help people. And if we feel like we're not a good fit, all of my editors that you would talk to are empowered to just tell you that. There are industries that we serve that don't do very well, and so we're very honest in that case. The supplement and nutrition space is one of those that is just so difficult with restrictions with the FDA and the wire when it comes to things like that. It may be problematic depending on what you're releasing, but we're really there to help you. We walk people through their first PR press release all the time, and if you need help, there's a lot of resources on our website as well.
Well, fabulous, Mickie. I really want to thank you for the work that you're doing to making media more accessible for small businesses. And I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this morning. I think you're doing great work to make media more accessible and efficient for small businesses. I want to encourage you to continue the good work, and I want to thank you for joining me this morning. It's most appreciated.
You're welcome.